Hi, I'm Mark, and this is Foothill Paint Fabrication. Today we're back on the 1950 Chevy pickup fenders. These are the rears. So we're going to do some blocking on these and try to straighten them out a little bit more using the paint that's on them before we go into prime. So let's go ahead and get after this thing and get these things straightened out. Okay, today we're going to use some sanding blocks. I have a whole set of Dura Blocks. These things work great. I love them. They have quite a few. You can actually buy a set. I got mine off Amazon. And they have quite a few in the selection. I think they have multiple different sizes of sets. But you can't go wrong with these things. I really like them. Now, obviously I can't use the big heavy ones because they simply do not bend. They'll flex a little bit, but not enough to go around a 50 Chevy pickup fender. So we're going to be going with the smaller ones that are more flexible. So I can bend this around the fender and force it as I sand to help smooth out this paint. We'll also use the standard size here. It flexes as well. I like to use peel and stick sandpaper. Now I buy this stuff in bulk in the big roll. It just saves me time and money buying it this way, but you can buy it what's called a jobber pack. A jobber pack is a cardboard sleeve with 3 or 4 sheets in it, maybe 5 sheets in it. So you don't have to spend a ton of money, but you can get what you need. And as you change grits, you don't have a bunch of it. Now I do so much of this kind of stuff. This is the way to go for me. But if you're just doing one car, a jobber pack is perfect because it's just about what you're going to need for the car. And if you need a little bit more, you're only going to get 3 or 4 more sheets. So let's go ahead and get the sandpaper set up, and then we'll talk about some techniques for sanding to make sure you don't sand unevenness in or flat spots into a fender like this. Okay, so then we're going to sand in a crosshatch pattern across these fenders, okay? So, and I'm not going really fast. I'm being deliberate as I sand, and I'm watching what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go the other direction like this. And like I said, this isn't super critical right now, but later on it will be when you're trying to get this fender perfect as you can get it before you start spraying color on it and clear. So you're going to need to practice. You can use this as a practice all the way to when you're going to color sand the fenders or your car to polish. So that way you don't end up screwing up on the final step. You've already figured out how you want to sand everything. You know, for guys that do it all the time, it's a no-brainer. But if you're just starting out, it's important to get some knowledge as you go. So we're going to go all the way up here like this. And by using the heavier grit, this is 240. I don't have to push hard. I don't have to, move, 100 miles an hour. All I have to do is just move slow and deliberate and watch the way it sands. And really, if you go too fast, it just heats up the paint, and then it causes your sandpaper to load up faster. So now we're going to go the other direction. And I'm going to try to spread my hands out here a little bit to smooth out the block so it's laying nice and flat. And I'm looking as I'm sanding. I'm looking to see if we've got consistent sand across the whole thing. And then we're going to blow this off real quick, and then we're going to take a look at it, okay? Okay, hopefully this shows up on camera pretty good. So you can see the light areas and you can see the dark areas. And it's kind of blotchy, see? So there's nothing consistent about it. So that's just a wave in the paint or in the fender. So I've got a low spot here, a low spot shaped like that. We've got one over here. So I sanded thoroughly across it, so it's not spots I missed, because obviously I hit all the way around it. So we know, and there's a little, I know there was something in the paint or something right there from the last paint job. So we're going to continue blocking this out until it's all nice, the same consistency across. Now, I can run my hand across here, and I can feel all those. If I shut my eyes, I can feel every ridge on there. So the sandpaper is actually showing me what my hands are going to feel. Now, I like to use my eyes, not my hands, because your hands can deceive you between textures, where it'll go from rough to smooth, and you'll think that's a dip, and it's just a texture change, not a undulation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go and block this out all the way across off camera, and then I'll bring you back and we'll talk a little bit about what else we find and how we've worked these out. So I'm going to sand this until this is gone. Now, this is a pretty good, I didn't even notice this before. I didn't run my hands over every square inch of these fenders, but I can feel that right there, and that's something that would show up in a nice glossy paint job. We don't want that. That's clearly visible. The bed is up here, you know, like that, and I would notice it. So we're going to work on this whole fender and see what we can get done, and then I'll bring you back. Of course, we can see right here, there's a dent. I knew that dent was there. That's no big deal. I can feel it. We're going to push that out and take care of it. This right here, I think it was the owner sanding probably the chip out, or a chip right here, but it feels pretty smooth. So we're actually going to fill that chip with some glazing putty later on. But we have this paint chip out here, which we knew about, but this dent showed up, and then we have this body line right here, which I know it's hard for you to see, but this fender goes nice and smooth, and then it kind of dips, and then it rolls back out to where it bolts onto the bed. So that's on the same on both fenders. So that's just part of the stamping process that this was in there. The running boards go out here. So this is the front of the fender, and the bed is right here. So it's kind of tucked back in there. It's not a huge deal, but we're going to get that out anyways on both fenders. It's also kind of puckered up along here. Just from them stamping it and bending it over, it's kind of puckered right there. So we're going to go ahead and smooth those out the best we can. We've got a dent right here that needs to be taken out. It looks like they just painted over it. All in all, the fender looks pretty good. Now, I can feel a few dents and I see a few low spots and everything else, but this actually looks pretty good. I'm going to swing you around to the other side and we'll take a look what's going on there. Okay, if we take a look right here where this pucker was, and this low spot, you can see that I was able to sand it all out just using the paint that was on the vehicle. Instead of slathering body filler on there or something, we blocked this down. This fender has a lot of paint on it. So I'll show you on the other side, but there's a whole archaeological dig on the other side where I sanded through. You can see we have still just a small low spot right here. So I'll address that. We're up to the steel here and here. So sanding more, we're pushing out into the paint on the other one, and there's only so much I can do. So I used 120 on this. Now 120 will remove material, but 120 doesn't feather edge very well. So these different paint lines from different layers of paint, I can feel those. So I'll go over this whole thing with some finer grit. We don't want those in there. Even if we're throwing primer over the top, we still want those feather edged out really nice and smooth. And then when we put the primer on, then we're not trying to cover that up. We're just trying to give us another base to give us a good, smooth, very fine finished paint primer to put the base coat on and then subsequently put the clear on. So we got a little low spot there and this little bit right here. So what I'll probably end up doing, I'm going to scuff these up with some 80 grit right here and put some of the glazing in there. The glazing is designed for very, very thin applications, and that's what this is here. So we'll do that before primer. I could throw extra coats of primer on there and block that out again, but I'd rather do all that with some glazing and then that way I'm not having to put multiple coats of primer on the fender at one location or another. So all along this edge here, I was able to block out nearly all the waves and ripples. So as you can see by the way the paint is a little blotchy here, it was up and down, but the paint actually did the filling for me. So I can feel that, feels smooth. Down here it's a little rough, so when I glaze, I'll glaze all the way down through. This fender is going to take a little bit different approach. It's actually got a little more, it's not as much damage, but it's got a lot more paint damage. There's a lot of chips along this edge right here, possibly from, I've seen this before, from snow chains. And this could be from rock chips, but it's snow chains coming loose and just kind of banging along the edge of the fender. Could have been what caused it, doesn't really matter, but I'm going to block that out with some 120 right here because I can feel it's really rough. Then we'll go back over it with some 240. So let me jump on this. It's similar to the other side. I'm not going to bore you with it, but we're going to get some blocking done and try to keep the camera and everything else clean. I got blue everywhere already. So if the lens is a little dirty, I apologize. I'm trying to make sure everything stays clean. But we're going to go ahead and get this sanded out here, and then we'll come back and we'll start talking about knocking some dents out and fixing some chips. If you are new to doing body work and knocking out dents, or pushing out dents, I should say, I really recommend that you watch some paintless dent repair videos. Some of those guys are just absolutely geniuses at pushing dents out without popping the paint or making it worse. So it's never perfect, but they do a really good job. And so what that can do is help you learn how to do dent removal without grabbing, you know, the hammer and just wailing away on it, because most of the time you go too far, then you go back the other way, and then you stretch the metal, and then you've got all kinds of problems. So slow and easy is the way to go removing dents. So you want to really take your time. And then this rule of thumb I always go by that I learned a long time ago is you take the dent out in the opposite direction it went in. So if you have a crease that goes like this and it gets deeper, you can tell it started here and it ended there. You want to take the crease out from the deep side and then push it back to the other side. That way you can put, because that metal was pushed that way. So you want to work it back the opposite direction. If you were to start taking the dent out here and work back towards the where it ended, then you're going to end up with too much material at the other end. But if you start on this end where it was pushed towards, you may not be able to tell it was pushed towards that way, but it was. And then you can, as you work that dent out, you're going to slowly move that material back where it belongs. And then you're not going to have a problem with a bunch of oil can dent or too much material that you try to have to shrink to get rid of. Okay, so we can clearly see the defined edges of this dent, and I can feel it. It's fairly deep. It's probably, I would say, 1/8 of an inch deep. I can see the center of the dent where whatever hit it put it in there. But by sanding, we also exposed these other little creases. So I rub my finger over the top, I can feel a little crease right there, and a little low spot right here is exposed by the paint being darker because it didn't get sanded. I believe these two are related to this chip. So I don't know if there was a dent and somebody took a hammer or something and popped the dent out and popped the paint off, or what. So it's not rusted down in there, so it may be fairly new. But what we're going to do is, when I grind the paint away to fill this, I will go ahead and encompass this whole area, and we'll fill the whole area just in case. I mean, I could just grind that and fill that, but I'm already here, so I'll go ahead and get the whole area. So let's figure out how we're going to push this dent out. This right here is just a little crease. In fact, I don't know that I can do anything. It's so shallow I can just barely feel it. So that's what blocking out will do for you. It'll expose things that you can't feel with your hands. So let's see if we can't push on this and get this dent to push back out. Okay, looking up underneath and trying to figure out a way to push this dent out, I really don't have any leverage. So, and that's really what you need to push a dent out, is have leverage. So it's not on the truck. I can't push up against the frame and try to get it to come out. So we're going to have to hammer on it a little bit, which isn't the end of the world, but I'm not going to go wailing away with the hammer. Now this is, I've been doing body work with this single hammer and other hammers forever. So this was my father's, and he did a little bit of body work here and there. I kind of helped him, but I just got this when he passed away, and I've had it for years. He died many years ago, and I still use it. It's been great. I bought a new set to have a little bit better tools in my toolbox to get things done. So I'm going to use the handle end here and tap on that from the back side. And so what it'll do is the rubber will keep me from putting dings in the paint outward. And then hopefully I can hit right on the inside of that crease and push that out. So I'm gonna swing around the other side and see what we can do. Okay, I couldn't really see the crease that well inside there. I can feel it, but I can't see it. So I took a Sharpie and I kind of drew the shape of the peak of that dent right there. And we'll see how that works out. So I should be able to see a little bit better when I'm hammering or tapping. So it's coming out. It's a lot more shallow right here. It's still a little deep right here. I may have to switch over to something else because it is a little tough right on this spot right here. Yeah, it's coming out. Slow but sure. And this is where I used to make a lot of mistakes. I'd get impatient and want to push the dent out really fast, and then I'd make a mistake. So I'm going to switch over to a dolly. This is actually my father's as well. And I'm going to use the round side of it, and I'm just going to go at the angle that this curve is, and I'm going to tap from the back side with this. Okay, that's looking really good now. I can feel a little crease, a little ridge right here. Feels real good right here. Good there. Good there. And this, remember the center of that dent was closer to this edge, so it kind of drops off here. So I'm going to smack it a few more times dead center of that. I can still feel it from the back side. See if we can't get that out. As you reach the end of the dent, it gets a little bit harder to push the dent out. When it's deep, the first few hits, the point is sticking out, so the load of the hammer or the dolly or whatever you're using is concentrated on a small spot. And then as it flattens out, then the surface area gets larger, so it takes a little bit harder hit. So be aware of that. So it's feeling really good through here. I got a little crease there. But I haven't caused any more damage. I haven't pushed out here or there or caused a bunch of little tiny dents sticking out. So I'm going to hit it a few more times right here. We may have to tap it back in here or there after we run the sandpaper over it, see where we're at. Okay, let's hit it with the long board here real quick and see how it looks. Okay, as you can see, we have a little low spot there, low spot there. And these could be higher because this dent went in, I think, like this. And when that happened, it pushed that sheet metal up like a little bit of a wave. So I'm going to tap those down a little bit and tap these up, see if I can get those out. So the idea is to try to get as straight as possible before body filler is even considered. So sure, I could have ground that and just slathered some body filler over it, but it would have ended up with a high spot here because I didn't take the dent out properly. So when that material went in, that probably pushed up a little bit here, right here. Plus me sanding, there's a ridge right there. So It feels really good right there. As you can tell by sanding, it really did a nice job. So I'm going to take a second and try to tap these two out a little bit more, and then and see how it looks. Okay, so that dent feels pretty good. We're going to use body filler on it, don't get me wrong, but it feels pretty good. I'm not going to go hammering on it much more. It is very minute, the wave right here. So when I grind all this paint off to put the body filler on, I'll grind all the way down to here, and we'll take care of this whole thing all at once. Okay, my main two tools I use for taking off paint, getting ready for body filler is this Ingersoll Rand air sander. You could use anything really. You could use a drill with a sanding disc on it. Doesn't really matter. Your grinder, whatever. Just make sure whatever disc you're using match the speed of whatever you're using. You're using a little 4.5 inch angle grinder. That thing could spin up to 10,000 RPM where the discs can't take that kind of speed, and they could explode on you. So be wary of that. Just read the back, see what they say, and make sure that you're using the proper disc on whatever tool you're using. The other one I use is just this little Harbor Freight air tool, little 90 degree with these 80 grit little discs on here. So it does a great job for getting into little tight areas like around those rivets and everything else. Like I said, you can use anything. As long as you get the paint off there, rough up the surface a little bit, and then get it prepped for body filler. So let's go ahead and jump over to the fenders and knock some paint off. Okay, I'm going to keep the camera a little bit farther away, keep it from getting destroyed while I do this. So I'm just going to put a respirator on, or a dust mask, and some hearing protection, and then we'll zip through this real fast. Okay, we can see on this one, there was body filler all the way down, which I wasn't expecting. Remember, we had that chip of the paint out there right there, so obviously a rock hit or something hit and knocked body filler off, not just paint. So that one is ready to go. It feels really good. Down here, where the patch panels were, that's ready to go. Another patch panel over here. So we're going to go all the way around and just feather that out. And we had another dent, almost the exact same spot as the other one, which I wonder how that happened. But this one's super shallow, so we're going to go ahead and fill that one really easy. And then we've got this one over here, that little tiny one. There's really nothing left. We're just going to skim coat that right there. And then that should be about it for these rear fenders. Okay, that wraps up this video. We got the Chevy Truck rear fenders blocked out really nice and pushed all the dents out, and we're about ready for some body filler. So thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you.